This has shaped who I am. And I've been so blessed to have so many great mentors in this space that it's not an overnight transition, or at least it's not for me.
Welcome to Working Women Mentor, a podcast that empowers everyday women like you, like me, to share and learn from life's mentor moments. I am your host, Rani Alfers, and in each episode, you will meet inspiring women that understand the power of recognizing mentor moments and how those moments can change it all. These fabulous women are here and ready to share it all with you. So let's dive in. Hey everyone, today on Working Women Mentor, I'm thinking about healthy food, healthy alternatives to all the stuff we love in our pantry, but probably shouldn't have in there. And so with that, we get to meet Lauren Schwalb. She's the founder of Olaf Foods. And this company started during the pandemic, like so many have, but she really had an idea from a healthy eating alternative to feed her family and find solutions when there weren't any. Give me a little bit of grace with my audio today in the first few minutes because Lauren's story is so worth hearing. It's motivating and it's empowering, especially for all of you who may have an idea, who may have a friend who has an idea. I think you're going to love this episode. So let's jump in and meet Lauren Schwalb.
All right, Lauren. Okay, you have to tell me about the Whole30 food diet and how you actually got started into this healthy path and your food company, Olaf.
Yeah. So my husband and I, we did Whole30 at the start of last year in 2020, and Whole30, you cut out a variety of things from your diet. And the biggest one for us in our household was gluten. So we started playing around with alternative flours, such as almond flour. And in our house, staples, items that we would buy every single week were tortillas and chips. And those two things weren't really allowed on Whole30, but you can make an alternative tortilla with almond flour. It's not technically Whole30 because they don't want you to have the art of the tortilla, but after we did Whole30, we kind of kept eating that way, and so we made substitutions in our kitchen, and we loved tortillas, and so we just kind of played around with the recipe. And it's really funny because it was just fun in the beginning. I kind of grew up in the kitchen. I grew up cooking with my family, and then real quickly I thought, you know what? This could be a business. So I probably thought it could be a business before anyone else. And I would play with recipes and I would bring them to my office and I'd make my girlfriends try them and I'd give them to family and friends. And they kind of all thought I was silly. And they're like, what are you doing? Just go buy an almond flour tortilla. And I did, I tried that, but I didn't like the consistency or the texture. I really wanted something that mimicked a flour tortilla because that was something I felt like I was giving up, but I noticed the benefits once I stopped eating flour. And so I just sort of had it in my head that I was going to do this. And real quickly, like I said, I thought pretty early on, this could be a business. And I have some friends in the CPG industry. And I remember the day when it clicked and I was like, I'm going to do this. And I told my husband and he's like, what do you mean? You don't even have like a recipe. What do you mean you're going to start a food business? And I think when he said that to me, I just got going and I fine-tuned a recipe and I hired a food scientist to help me tweak it and get it ready to scale and help me find suppliers for the ingredients. I would go to Whole Foods or go to Costco and buy almond flour, but that's not sustainable if you want to grow. And then he helped me find ultimately what's called a co-packer who can actually produce and make this for me, which is where we are today.
Well, you've come so far from the moment that your doctor said, hey, try the elimination diet. Go to your pantry, take out everything you love. And let's start there. What has that journey been like for you? Are you swept up in it right now? Can you just take a moment to enjoy it? Or how are you feeling about this?
It's really a journey, and I have to remind myself every day that there's not just one destination you're going to get to, right? And there's going to be a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and you can't take the highs too high and you can't take the lows too low. But sometimes I have to stop and remind myself that I have come a long way in 18 months. Really, if you think about it from idea, I had this idea in January of 2020, and in May of 2021, we were in retail stores, 9 stores across Texas. Like, that's huge.
That blows my mind, by the way. I mean, that
it blows my mind.
Yes, I think about the women listening to us, like we all have like a go-to dish or something that, it's like we can make, or we want to experiment, make it a little better, but you literally got yours, made it better, and now have it in stores that quickly. I mean, that's impressive.
I have to, you are your own worst critic at times. And so I have to sometimes step back and remember this is a journey and it's an evolution, and it's supposed to be fun. In the moment that I'm feeling like it's not fun and I'm not connected to it, I take a moment and I step back, because really, I've enjoyed my time in commercial real estate in corporate America, and that's really shaped who I am, quite frankly. And honestly, I've been with the company I'm with for 10 years, and it's been a slow process for me to think about exiting and doing Olaf full time. But at the same time, like, that's what I want, right? I grew up, I'm very fortunate that I grew up watching an entrepreneurial dad who has built and sold multiple companies. And he's really my resource. So when we get into talking about mentors, like, that's my guy. And I'm really lucky that I've got that to help me. But at the end of the day, like, I know that that's what I want. It's really silly, but I can remember being like in college, and my roommate's mom came to visit, and she's like, what do you want to do when you graduate? And I'm like, own my own company. I never knew what. I'm an idea person. I've had lots of ideas, but all I knew is that I wanted to own my own company and to be my own boss, and to, as a mom of 2 kids, like, I want flexibility. And I think with COVID now you have that. But I want to work, but I also want to be a mom. And those are big drivers for me. But at the end of the day, I'm passionate about health and wellness. And I know how much this journey has meant to me personally, and my own health journey. And there's nothing cooler than being able to share that and spread that with the world. So
absolutely. And, so you're still full-time in commercial real estate on that side?
I am. The state of commercial real estate obviously has taken a big hit with COVID, and things are going to look different on the other side of this. And it's been fun, but like I said, I've been there 10 years, and it's been a slow process for me. My company knows what I'm doing, and we're working on an exit plan and what that looks like. But at the same time, like, I've been there 10 years. This is my family, and I can't just leave them high and dry. So it's been a slow process, and I'm so lucky. Like I said, this has shaped who I am. And I've been so blessed to have so many great mentors in this space that it's not an overnight transition, or at least it's not for me. Mm-hmm. And for me, I wanted to, again, I got 2 young kids, and I knew, like I said, from day one, I was like, this is going to be a business, and it's going to be a successful one. And I have no doubt in that. There's going to be challenges, of course, but I also felt like I needed to validate. So in those 18 months, we softly launched last year, at the end of last year, I want to say October, at the Dallas Farmers Market. And that was really more R&D to make sure, get real time feedback from customers. And on day 1, we sold out of 100 units tortillas.
So what was that? I mean, the first day you show up, I mean, you set up your stand, and you take, I've been to the Dallas Farmers Market, and there's usually samples, and there's all kinds of lovely vendors there. And, what was that experience like for you? Were you just trying to convince people to come and try your product, and then everyone bought? Or did you get anyone that looked at you like you were crazy trying to peddle your own brand?
I think all of the above. And I think people still look at me like I'm crazy. The other day I was out walking and saying hi to my neighbor, and the gal she was standing with was like, oh yeah, you're the tortilla lady. And kind of like, funny look, like, the tortilla lady, that's you. So I think there's always an element of that. And I remember my dad saying early on, he's like, if people think you're crazy, then you're really onto something. So you just have to keep going. And so yes, that's true. But I think The farmers market was such a cool experience for me. Obviously, I've been as a consumer and I love seeing new and innovative things, but there's really a community there. And so it was really fun. We weren't there for that long. The height of COVID had restrictions. We did do samples. So we had to get creative with samples and kind of hand them away. And people either like it or they don't. And there are people, I think a lot of health conscious people are looking to go to the farmers market for unique things or for, healthy vegetables and fruit. And so there were a lot of people who just really loved it. And there were people who would come every week. And if we weren't there, they would message us on Instagram and say, where are you guys this week? So like, that's a cool feeling. And we had a really strong following in that, which again, kind of continued to validate why I knew we should continue on this path. And then really we switched our focus to retail. Ultimately, that's where we want to grow and scale. It's not a direct to consumer model. And so I'd like to get back to the market because I'm still able to be a vendor, but it's so hard to find the time because our focus has really been on growing our retail presence.
Well, and you are growing your retail presence. You have expanded into, and for those of, outside of Texas listening, I mean, Central Market's a big deal, right? I mean, to get into that store and to find your way around navigating that has, I imagine, been a challenge.
Yeah, no, and if you think about, again, kind of people thinking you're crazy, you're starting a food company at the height of COVID. So last year when I was calling on suppliers, almond flour suppliers, and calling on co-packers, people who can make my product, or even people who make my packaging, the height of COVID, everybody stopped going out to restaurants and the grocery stores were sold out. So nobody at that time wanted to work with any young startup, nonetheless of somebody who's never been in this industry, right? And so that was the first challenge that I had to overcome. And it felt like, it felt like a big win once I did overcome that and I found great partners. But yeah, Central Market has been awesome. It's where I do my grocery shopping. So I'll never forget the day that our products went live on the shelves. I took my two daughters down there and they love shopping there because they get their balloons and they get
yes. My son loves the balloon.
the balloons. Yeah. We come home with two every week and then they get either a banana or an apple or an orange as we shop. That's them entertained. And so it was the coolest feeling, like rounding the corner and seeing my product and my two children being like, wow, mommy, that's your product, because they've been along this journey. It's really important for me too, for them to be involved. This is totally a family run business. And my daughter's obviously Ola. I don't know that you know, but the O stands for my oldest daughter, Olivia, and the H stands for Hadley, my youngest daughter. And then my girlfriends call me La, which is the L and the A. And then my husband's the exclamation point. So like, there's so much meaning to me behind this brand. And it's the inspiration really comes from my kids. So they were there with me those late nights as I was making the tortillas in my kitchen for the farmer's market. They would get their own, couple rolls of dough that they could use that we weren't, going to press and sell. And they would make tortillas alongside me. So it's such a fun journey. And for them to then see it in the store and they don't quite understand it yet, but they know how cool it is. And it's a great feeling. I remember in the beginning, I was like, I'll know I've made it when I've seen it in a store. But again, you can't take every high too high and every low too low. So
that's so right. And I think that, you talk like about what your kids are involved, your husband's involved, your family's involved. I mean, the impression that you're making on them at such a young age is so valuable. But it also sounds like your dad was your really early mentor in life, and he made a huge impression on you. Tell me about how your view on mentorship and maybe what that looked like to you.
Yeah, I am really lucky in the fact that I've had a ton of great mentors from both the corporate side and commercial real estate, and blessed to have a dad who is there anytime I have a question, no matter how silly it is, or I just need to talk strategy, or I just need someone to talk to. He's always there. And but I also have a really good group of friends who I think, and colleagues who I equally consider a mentor, just to have that sounding board. That's really important to me. But my dad, I think one of the biggest, I know you talk about like a mentor moment, and I've had so many throughout my life and in my career, but one that really stands out, and I can take it back to, I think when probably a senior in high school, and I was applying for colleges, and I really wanted to go to this one school, but I was like, I'm not going to get in. I'm not in the top 10%. And I was like really hard on myself. Again, you're your own worst critic. Remember my dad saying, and he still says this to this day, he's like, Lauren, it's really better to set your goals high and not achieve them than to set them low and achieve them. And I think that was his way of telling me, like, you just have to keep reaching for the stars and you don't give up and you keep going. And for me, it was really hard because I don't like failure. So in a way, it's like human nature. You want to just set goals that you know you can make. Like there's something
it's comfortable. Yeah. Like that, you know, you can slide into.
Exactly. Like I make my, to-do list and I love crossing it off, right? Like that's
we all do.
my type A nature. But at the same time, I'm like, I really feel like I'm really now really starting to understand that with Ola, because he's like, Lauren, you just go for it. Like, do you want to look back in 10 years and wonder what could have happened? And so for me, like, who knows where this journey is going to take me? I'm very optimistic. And I feel like when passion meets these sorts of things, you tend to go further because you're just not willing. For me, I'm just not willing to let it go. Like, this is what I want to do. I know I want to do it. I have, I've set my goals pretty high, but if I don't make it, I don't make it. And I know I've made it this far. Right. And that is something that's really stayed true to me. So it's better to set your goals high and not achieve them than to set them low and achieve them.
That's beautiful. I think, for everyone listening who, maybe hasn't had that father voice in their ear or has not learned where to even set their goals yet, I think that's a beautiful statement. And you're right. I mean, it's almost like it pushes you against your worst enemy, which is ourself, right? I mean, it puts you beyond where your comfort zone is. And that's always a hard place to be. Lauren, if you're thinking about this business, and I know you are always, and where it's going to go in the future, who is someone that you'd want to meet in the industry that just took you by the hand and said, come on, Lauren, let's do this. Like, let's really blow this thing up and scale it. Who would you want to meet?
Oh my gosh, there's probably so many, because I obviously being a CPG brand, I follow so many. So it's so fun to watch some like-minded brands in the health and wellness space and to watch their journey. And I look at it with a different lens because I'm a founder and an owner, and I'm thinking of everything in my business, right? How we're perceived in the market, what our margins are, where we produce, where we sell, all of those things. So there's probably a ton, but I think one in particular, one guy I did not know before I started this journey. And when I was writing my business plan and really researching health and wellness space, is a guy by the name of Jason Karp. He's the founder of Human Co., which is an investment fund that's focused on health and wellness CPG brands. So it's been really fun to watch his companies. He started Hue Chocolate. I don't know if you're familiar. And I think they actually had a restaurant in New York. And he really, similar to me, he came from I think a hedge fund background, but his passion is really health and wellness. So those two things meet, and he's got a ton of incubator brands in the health food industry and is really trying to change it. And I think his journey there really stemmed from his own personal struggles, from what I understand. And so it's something I can relate to, but I just think he's super fascinating. He's got a different lens than me. I know I've been in commercial real estate for 10 years, but really my background is marketing and PR, and his background is, investment banking, or hedge fund, which is so different than me. But I think he's just a fascinating person. I love following him.
Well, and I love that you want to connect with someone who has that different lens, as opposed to, that the same thing you already know and doing it better, that you're just expanding that reach as to how you can really look at the future of your own company and how you can look at it in different ways and bring the different backgrounds together. I think that's when there's so much synergy.
Yeah. And I also think starting a business, you see all sides of it. Like I said, everything from sales and operations to accounting and how people get paid. And there's a lot of not glamorous things. But it's fun that you get to learn. And I think you're right. Once you get out of your comfort zone, and I think as we begin to scale our team, you'll be looking for people who don't have that same expertise. And in fact, I remember one of my first bosses out of college saying that. She's like, one, you hire people smarter than you, and two, you hire people with different backgrounds than you. And oftentimes you get so stuck because you're really drawn to someone who's very similar to you, but they may not be the best complement for your team. So it'll be interesting to take that lens as we scale and grow and hire more folks.
Well, and it's, you always want that. You're right. I mean, I want people around me that are much smarter than I am and can see things in different ways and help me. And I think that is truly why you have them. If you hire a bunch of people that just tell you the same thing you already know or are there to affirm you, then that doesn't help. I mean, that doesn't help push things to the next level. When you have such a history in mentorship that I love, and how would you relate that to maybe someone wanting to start a CPG brand today? And how do you think you could be of help to them?
Yeah, it's real interesting. And I can't say that I'm much help other than I love sharing my experience, right? Because I'm a new brand and I'm learning as I go. And I'm lucky, like I said, I've got some friends who run an almond milk company actually. And
oh, interesting.
Dallas. Yeah. And so they've been a big sounding board for me, and they're probably tired of my endless questions, but it's a tough space to navigate, but you just can't be shy, and you're going to find people along the way that are going to embrace it and want to work with you. For example, my food scientist was amazing. I learned so much more from him, even outside of his core scope of work, just because he's in that industry and I was willing to ask questions. And, maybe I send him a couple bags of tortillas and chips, to show my appreciation with a handwritten note. But you find people like that and you take advantage. People innately want to help, or at least I've been lucky to work with a ton of people who really just want to help and watch you succeed. And I think that's the beauty of it. I've met so many different people in the industry who've really started to shape how I'm thinking about this. And I'm really lucky. So I think you just can't be afraid to ask questions, even if you're afraid of looking silly. You got to go for it. And it's interesting where I'm at in my career, thinking of myself as a mentor, because it's still, sometimes I feel like I graduated college in 2008, which was obviously some time ago. And I think in corporate America, they call this like the mid-career marathon.
Yeah, exactly. You're right there. You're running it.
You're running it. It's like right when you start to switch. And so I've always been really involved in my company and getting involved in CPG. But, I was founder of our women's network here in Dallas. And, I'm really big on just like community and people coming together. And that also is the reason why I started Ola. I love the fact that food brings people together. And I think community is just such a big part of life. And so you just can't be afraid to put yourself in that community where your interests lie and see where it takes you.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. Lauren, where can we find Ola if we're not shopping in Central Market like the two of us every weekend? Where can everyone listening get your products?
Yes, well, you can find our product online. We do have some available to sell online, which is olafoods.com. We are also in some Berkeley markets here in Dallas, in Royal Blue in Austin, and we've got a couple of really big retail conversations underway right now. So I'm hopeful in the next couple of months we'll have some additional retail stores, but in the meantime, you can find us online.
Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. Your wisdom, and you are just blossoming into this mentor that you grew up next to. I mean, your dad, it sounds like, was so impactful, and I think you're doing the same, I bet, for everyone around you, and including everybody listening today. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I hope you'll walk away feeling inspired and are thinking of how a mentor moment can help you or someone you know. In case you haven't hit the follow button to subscribe to this show, please do so. And if you love the episode, I'd really appreciate a review. You see, this review helps Apple or Spotify or whatever platform you're listening to us on know that other women just like you want to learn about the show. And it'll help us spread the word. Let's connect on Instagram at Working Women Mentor or at Rani Alfers. You can find all episodes online at ranialfers.com/podcast and the ability to send an audiogram of your favorite mentor moments. And we respond to everyone. I truly can't wait to hear from you. Check back weekly for new episodes, and cheers until the next episode.